Compound or complex sentence. Compound sentence, a sentence which has two or more than two independent clauses, and a complex sentence, one independent clause and one or more than one dependent clause. So if we look at this text, right, Mary Ann's stories of the sea touched Philip's imagination. One evening he asked whether he might go home with her. His aunt feared that he might catch something. His uncle said that evil communication corrupted good manner. So the same text is given. Mary Ann's story of the sea touched Philip's imagination. One evening he asked whether he might go home with her, semicolon, but his aunt feared that he might catch something, and his uncle said that evil communication corrupted good manners. So if you look at this, the text A and the text B, they are approximately giving the similar information, but the difference is that in text A we have divided sentence into clauses, and in text B there is one big running sentence having different clauses. Let's look at this aspect. The B version is closer to the original text of the novel. So if we like to count the sentence, we'll find that in text A there are more sentences than text B. So if we count the sentences in text B, we'll find fewer sentences. Note that second, third and fourth sentence of A have been joined together in B to form one long sentence. So three sentences form one sentence in text B. The boundaries of the sentence in A are still visible in B. Either they are joined by any punctuation or they are joined by any coordinator, right, or by sometime comma. The place where the linking has taken place is indicated by means of special punctuation as comma or semicolon, and by means of coordinator and, but, etc. A clause which is coordinated with another clause in this way is called a conjoint, right? A clause which is coordinated with another clause is called conjoint. I repeat it, right? Thus the second sentence of B consists of three conjoints which have been joined to form one sentence. So we see that more clauses are joined in text B. The three conjoints, 13A, one evening he asked whether he might go home with her. B, but his aunt feared that he might catch something. 13C, and his uncle said that evil communication corrupted good manners. So we can see that these are the three conjoints which have been joined by these coordinators, but and. So a sentence which consists of a string of coordinated clauses, conjoints, is called a compound sentence. So this definition of the clause or compound sentence is different from the definition we generally discuss about in our traditional grammar. George cheated at Harvard and Jane cheated at Yale. Sue went to London and stayed there for a week. John studied very hard last year, but he failed his test. So these are different conjoints joined by different coordinators. In example, simple sentences have been coordinated as we have just seen. A third category is that of complex sentence. To define this, let's look at first few sentences. I know that the snake killed the rat. So in this sentence, I know that the snake killed the rat. The snake which killed the rat belongs to our neighbors. So in 18, the string that the snake killed the rat is a clause, but it is not coordinated with another clause. Rather, it forms part of another clause. It is embedded in another clause. The other clause, the main clause, is I know that the snake killed the rat. So I know is the main clause, and that snake killed the rat is the subordinated clause, right? So this is what makes this sentence a complex sentence, that it has one main clause and one subordinate clause, and subordinate clause is actually the constituent of the main clause. If we look at this is the direct object of the verb I know. You can put up question, know what? That the snake killed the rat. So it gets the answer of the verb, which of what, verb plus what, that means that it is object. The embedded clause is a constituent of the VP of the main clause, as I said. In 19, the string which killed the rat is also a clause. This clause forms part of the snake which killed the rat, which is an NP, right? The clause is embedded in the NP. The embedded clause is the constituent of the phrase in which it occurs. Sentence which contain embedded clauses of this kind are said to be complex. So the embedded clause is a constituent of the main clause, either the subject or the object, or object of the preposition, or even in a noun phrase there may be an adjective clause. We shall return to the syntactic difference between compound and complex sentences below. There are also mixed types of sentences which involve both coordination and subordination. There may be subordinate clauses within conjoins, and subordinate clause may also be coordinated, right? So even subordinated clauses can be coordinated. So if we look at this, there are many sentences. One evening he asked whether he might go home with her. So in this sentence we have one main clause and one subordinate clause. But his aunt feared that he might catch something. So this is a compound sentence. This become a clause joined by a coordinator, that is but. And his uncle said, and this is again a clause that is joined on the previous clause, and this is the main clause, that evil communication corrupted manner. So that evil communication is the embedded clause of the main clause, his uncle said. So similarly, these are all clauses in which we find that one clause is main clause and other clause is its constituent, embedded as a constituent, either as noun phrase or as any other phrase. And sometimes the main clauses are joined by either by a coordinator like but, or by a semicolon, right? So these mixed type of sentences are called compound complex sentence because they have two independent clauses and one or more than dependent clause. So such a type of sentence is called compound complex sentences. These are important. There are important difference between coordinate and subordinate clauses. Coordinate clauses are introduced by coordinator and, but, or, for, etc. And subordinate clauses are introduced by subordinator when, before, because, if, etc. Although generally the subordinated clauses are have subordinators which make the constituent either the subject, object, or adverb of time, adverb of place, adverb of manner of the main clause, right? The snake killed the rat and it swallowed it. So in this sentence we have two independent clause joined by a coordinator. The snake killed the rat before it swallowed it. But here we have one main clause, the snake killed the rat, and one dependent clause before, because it tells about the time of the verb of the first clause. The coordinator always appear in a position between two coordinated clauses, whereas the subordinator is part of the subordinate clause. As a result, it is impossible to place the second conjoined together with the coordinator in front of the first conjoined. Compare the snake killed the rat and it swallowed it. If we say and it swallowed it, we cannot bring it to the first place. It will be an incorrect sentence. On the other hand, subordinate clauses and the subordinators which introduce them can be fronted. The snake killed the rat before it swallowed it, and before it swallowed it, the snake killed the rat. So this is very common with the complex sentence, that the dependent clause can follow the main clause or can precede the main clause. The subordinator and the clause form one constituent. The coordinator and the second conjoined are two separate constituents which cannot be joined together. The difference between coordinator and subordination of clauses may be represented as follows. Coordination, sentence 1, sentence 1, it has sentence 2, coordination, and sentence 3. Whereas subordination, sentence 1 and sentence 2 and subordinator. Coordination with and, but, and or allows deletion of the subject of the second conjoined if it is co-referential to the subject of the first conjoined. For example, he plays cricket and reads as well. So the subject of the second clause is deleted. It was the same subject, so there was a co-referential relationship between them. So deletion of the subject is generally impossible in the subordinate clause. We cannot say the snake killed the rat before it at it, but we cannot delete before from the second clause. The snake killed the rat and it swallowed it. The snake killed the rat and before it swallowed it. This is not possible. So these are two types of clauses, compound and complex sentence. So compound sentence having two clauses or more than two clauses which are independent, and they may have one dependent clause, then it becomes a compound complex sentence, and a dependent clause with an independent clause with a dependent clause makes a complex sentence.